Welcome back. I'm Nicci the Great, coming at you with a personal experience, one of many, many personal experiences that I've had as a foster parent. I started my foster parent process probably back in 2006 or 2007, so off and on for several years. But in today's video, I want to share with you a story of a little girl named Juju B. If you have not already, please subscribe and hit that little notification bell below so you can be made aware of any new videos that I post. Let's try not to get emotional during this video. This video is way overdue, but I learned some really amazing things through the power of God by way of His Holy Spirit, and it was a phenomenal experience. Even at times it could be kind of heart-wrenching with the whole foster parent experience. And that's probably the reason why you're watching this video, because you're trying to gauge some type of understanding, you're trying to get some information, you're trying to see what it's like. If you have not, but if you already are, this message can also encourage you. Start with the history, why I became a foster parent. A lot of people ask me, why did you become a foster parent? My dad spent some time in the foster care system when he was really young, and to give back, I guess, when I was really young, I had foster siblings. Okay, I had a few foster siblings here and there, and so when I grew up, foster care was kind of a part of life. My father would share stories. Usually, they were horror stories from foster homes, and I always had the spirit of adoption within me when it came to foster kids and trying to adopt a child of my own. I have a brother that was adopted from a different country. And so I have cousins and distant aunts and people in my family that have been adopted. So I think, certain families are just known for certain things. So one of the things that my family is known for is just adopting people, taking people in. Okay. I became a foster parent when I was like 26 years old. And at the time, I didn't have any children. I wanted a child. I specifically wanted to adopt. I've been wanting to adopt since I was a child. And going through the foster care system, if you're trying to adopt a child, going and doing it through the foster care system is more economical. It's a whole lot cheaper because the state pays for it. I'm not sure how your state is, but in my state, they'll pay for it. And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to adopt through the foster care system. And I began with therapeutic children. Okay, so there's a difference between therapeutic foster care and traditional foster care, but I eventually transferred into traditional, but I started out with the older children. Give you a little backstory. Therapeutic children are children that have behavioral issues, they have mental health issues, they have emotional issues, they have social issues. So they're usually older children that need a lot of help. Okay, and so I've probably had over the years, maybe I'll say about 40 placements of kids. So I have a lot of knowledge base to draw from. I have a lot of experience to draw from with this whole thing of being a foster parent, all right? So there was a void within me why I became a foster parent, all right? And I had a strong hope for adoption. I wanted to adopt a little child. I wanted to adopt a girl, but I was open to a boy, okay? And I got some good experiences and I've got some really bad experiences, okay? And one early spring morning, I got a phone call from a social worker, and she said to me she had a baby in the NICU that needed a place to stay. She needed a foster parent for a baby that was in the NICU that needed a place to stay. And she told me that the child, was a drug baby. And instantly in my mind, I was like, I've had drug babies before. They're a lot of work. They cry a lot. There's not really any soothing them. Who knows how long these things will last, and all the health issues that go along with it. And I was really discouraged. I was like, but when they call you, you need to go on ahead and say yes or say no, because they've got a lot of foster parents. They're trying to place a baby. So there was this thing in the back of my mind that just was like, say yes. Ooh, say yes. And I said, you know what? I said, yes, I'll take her. It was a little girl. And a lot of times when God brings things to us, we make decisions based on past experiences, okay? But a lot of times God does not want us to make decisions based on past experiences. He wants us just to say yes and trust Him. And in this situation, I said yes and I trusted Him. Now, when I got off the phone, the atmosphere shifted a little bit. I started getting scared. I was like, oh no, she's going to be crying all night. She's going to be shaking. I'm not going to be able to console her. What am I going to do? And so another little voice said to me, well, if it gets too much, if you can't take care of her, you just call them back and she can move to another home. I was like, okay, that was going to be my exit plan. So I got a phone call from a gentleman. He was at the NICU, and he said, you know, do I need to bring her to you? Well, he said, first, I need to come down there to get NICU training from one of the nurses in the nursery, because she has spent a couple days in the NICU to get her weight up so she can get stabilized or whatever. So I said, okay. So I went down there, and I already have, you know, now I have my own child, and I had two other foster kids with me. And so the security officer, bless his heart, at the hospital was so nice. He babysitted all my kids while I went in with the NICU nurse, and she educated me on how to take care of a neonate. And so when I looked, oh Lord Jesus, when I looked at her, she was so precious. She was so beautiful. She was about like this big. She was barely 4 pounds, and she was so tiny, and she was so small, and she was curled up in her little NICU incubator, what do you call it? Like a little NICU bed. She was in a little NICU bed. And I saw her, and she was so precious. Now, to keep you posted, I had gotten this phone call out of nowhere. I didn't have anything for a baby. I didn't have a crib. I didn't have diapers. I had 0 things for a brand new baby. And so I told the nurse, she's like, well, do you have this? Do you have that? I said, sis, I ain't got nothing. I'm just here. I'm here to pick up a baby. She says, okay. So she gave me my paperwork. She educated me. She gave me some things to take home. I was not going to take Juju B with me just yet because the doctor had just left, and she needed to be signed off by a doctor before she can come home. So the next morning, the social worker called me, and he said, you know, can I bring her to you? I said, sure, you can bring her to me. So he dropped her off. And so she sat there for a couple hours. Now, one thing about a NICU baby, you have to feed them every 2 hours. You know, whether they want to eat or not, you got to wake them up and feed them. That one thing that the NICU nurse said was that physically she was perfect. She didn't have any physical abnormalities, but she was going to have some developmental issues. The nurse said that she was going to probably be learning slower. It was going to take her a little bit longer to catch up on milestones because of the drugs in her system or whatever. And so it kind of discouraged me a little bit, but in the back of my mind, she was so precious and she was so cute that I didn't even care. But over the next several weeks, I noticed some things with her. Okay, she would kind of do this little thing with her body. I don't want to call it like a twitching or a shaking, but she would kind of do that. And but she didn't cry. She was never a baby that just cried a lot. She just was so perfect and so beautiful. And so I would feed her every 2 hours. She started gaining weight. One thing that I got kind of in my feelings about was something kept playing in my mind what the nurse had said to me at the NICU. She said she'd probably have developmental issues. It would take her longer to learn things. And because she said that, I was kind of like, well, you guys, listen, I'm being completely transparent. I'm being completely honest about this placement, all right? I kind of didn't pour into her as much as I probably would have if I knew that she was like 100% in the mind. She was going to be functional, but highly functioning like a regular child, right? And so what I would do is I would feed her every 2 hours. I'd change her. You know, I'd hold her here and then I'd put her back in her bassinet or whatever. And so one of my resource people that I have in my life, she called me and asked me what's going on. I told her, you know, I got me a new baby, and I was telling her, you know, about the developmental issues, and they're bothering me, and I'm kind of discouraged because it's like, you know, pouring all this energy into her when I know that she's not probably going to be able to respond the way that I would like for her to. And she shut me down. She said, listen, she said, you pour into that baby as much as you would pour into a normal baby or a regular baby. She said, you love on her, you hug on her, you hold her, you talk to her, you do her the same exact way you would do any other baby. She said, with drug babies, there is so much healing in skin-to-skin contact, so much healing for their minds when you just love on them and pour into them. So she met up with me and she gave me like a baby harness. So I had her on my chest for like 20 hours a day. She just was attached to my body. She was listening to me talk. She was around when I was doing stuff around the house. When I was with the kids interacting with them, she was still there on my chest. And within 3 months, this baby completely turned around. She gained all types of weight. She was opening her eyes. Her eyes were actually, they were be able to focus, because at times her eyes would be all over the place. Her eyes would be here, over there, over there, over here. They'd be everywhere. Within a few months, she gained all this weight. She, her eyes were focusing on me. She was smiling. She was just like a regular baby. Within 3 months, you could not even have been able to tell that she was, a drug baby. When I first got her, she looked like a little baby squirrel. That's what she looked like when I would change her or bathe her or wash her up. She looked like a little baby squirrel. But after a couple months, she was just as plump and thick and fat and chunky, just like any other baby. And it was a blessing to watch Juju grow. All right. She was able to meet her milestones for her development, and I was so proud of her meeting those milestones. Any kind of milestone, her sitting up, her holding her bottle, her looking at me, her smiling, her following people with her eyes, her trying to grab things, any milestone that she met, I just was like, I was just so happy. I just celebrated within myself. All right. And out of all the placements, like I mentioned to you earlier, I've had a lot of placements over the years, and this one right here was a placement that I believe was just made in heaven. It was made in heaven, and I had a connection with her as if she was my own child. She didn't come from my body, but she came from my heart. And it's a difference if you've ever fostered or adopted a child and you have your own natural children. It's different when they come from your body versus when they come from your heart. There's not a higher level of love, but there's a different type of appreciation. There's a different type of thankfulness, because when God gives you a child from the heart, it sits different. It resonates different. It does something to you. So every time I would see her face, every time I would do something for her, it was like a promise that God had given to me that was coming to pass. So every single day, this future adoptee was a reminder of the goodness of God. It was a reminder of his blessings. It was a reminder that even the inner depths of your heart, your inner desires, God answers them. And every single day I would look at her, I was reminded of the goodness of God. I was reminded of his promises. All right. So me and her had an awesome, amazing connection. If you're wondering about her birth mom was on various different drugs, but over the course of the months that I had her, she, started going to treatment. She got her a job. She got her a car. She got her a place to stay. She was taking her parental classes, and she also was allowed, to go on visits, and she was doing really good. And so she would slip up here and there with the things that she was doing. But she was doing good, and I have to hand that to her. That's what the foster care is about. It's about, giving the parents time to get themselves together, you taking care of the baby so they can go home. When it comes to DHR, involved, my social worker, she was amazing. She was wonderful. Because it was during quarantine, we did a lot of FaceTiming. She wouldn't come to my home. Sometimes we'd meet, outside or whatever, because she wanted to be safe. We wanted to be safe. And there was a time or two we were exposed to COVID, so we were in quarantine. But the experience with DHR, I can't say anything negative about that worker that she had. She was amazing. The family dynamics with her and I and my family matched perfectly. And in my heart, I wanted to keep her. So I would pray to God, Lord, I want to keep this little girl. I want to keep her. She fits so well into my household. She's such a blessing, and I felt a connection with her that I have never felt with other children in my home. And when it comes to foster care and going to adoption, I'm not going to say if, I'm going to say when I adopt, I don't want the child growing up feeling like they were adopted. I want the child that I adopt to grow up like, I didn't even know I was adopted. Even though I will tell them, I don't want them to feel adopted. I want you to know you're adopted, but I don't want you to feel adopted. You see what I'm saying? I've heard adopted, adults say, I was always different. I was always treated different. I felt like I was adopted even before I even formally knew I was adopted. So that was something that I don't ever want the child I adopt to experience. I want them to feel like, well, I didn't even feel adopted. I didn't know I was adopted. I wanted them to feel like they were a part of me. I didn't want them to be separated from me. I wanted them to be connected to me, not just to me, but to the household. All right. Now, everything was going on wonderful. She fit in my social circles. Everybody loved her. People blessed me with so many things. I never really had to buy anything for her, even though I still did and spoiled her rotten. But people always gave me things. God always provides for the things that he gives to you. And God provided like multiple times for the things I needed for her when it came to babysitters, when it came to diapers, when it came to furniture, when it came to just work, when it came to actually going to the gym, because I'm an avid gym rat. And when I would go to the gym, there was always somebody there that was willing to hold her so I can get a good workout in. And they just were so amazing. They made it just so awesome just to be a foster parent. I got so much support. And that's one thing that we need as foster parents. We need a lot of support. And thank you, Holy Spirit. I want to give a shout out to the North Alabama Foster Closet. They are an amazing organization. And the director there, Kim, she was always just a message away. Anything that I needed or any resources that she had that I could use. And I'm not talking about physical. I'm talking about sometimes I just needed to talk to someone that was more experienced. Sometimes I needed to talk to a professional, and she always made that happen for me. So I'm just very, very grateful for that. So time went on, 8 or 9 months went on, and I was praying, Lord, I hope I don't get emotional right now. Lord, I want to keep her, because then I was already in love. I was already in love with her. I wanted to keep her as my own. I was already, crucify me if you want, but I already had a name. I was going to rename her. I was going to give her my last name. I was going to give her another name that had a strong meaning to it. And I kept praying, Lord, I want to keep her. Out of all the children, Lord, and I've been doing foster care since 2007. I said, Lord, I really want to keep this one. Lord, I really, really, really want to keep this one. I said, Lord, this is my daughter. And so God didn't say anything to me. And time began to wind. And every now and again, every month or every other month, the social worker would call me and she would give me an update on the mom. And so they were usually good updates. I can't even complain. They were good updates. She was very nice to me. She was very cordial to me. She referred to me as Miss this and Miss that. And there were some hiccups along the road, which I'm not going to get into, but I just flat out, I asked God, because I was on a journey, because he's the one that told me to get this little girl, to say yes to her. And I said, Lord, I need to know if I'm going to be able to keep this little girl. I need to know, right? So I started having dreams back to back. Every night I would have a dream, and in the dream, God would tell me no. God would tell me no in the dream. And I just wake up. I was so upset. I was crying. I would look at her and she'd be asleep, because it'd be the wee hours of the morning. And I would cry, and I would look at her, and I just would continue to beg God. I said, God, please let me keep this little girl. I want to keep her for myself. I believe that she's a part of me. That's my daughter. She came from my heart. She didn't come from my loins. She came from my heart. And the next night, God would give me a dream, and he would say no. So after a series of doing this, I said, Lord, okay, I accept the no. But I said, Lord, I need you to help me during this process of letting go. Lord, I need you to help me in this process of letting go. You see, sometimes God moves us into seasons, and we want to hang on to the season. But the season is just for a short amount of time. It's not for a lifetime. And so when the season is coming to an end, which I had to learn, I needed to go ahead and let go. And sometimes letting go is so hard. So in this moment, I was leaning into God. I was growing in this. I always talking about growing, sharing, and thriving. I was growing. I said, Lord, I need you to heal my body. I need you to heal my heart. I need you to heal my mind as I go through this separation with my daughter, the daughter from my heart. And so some weeks went by, and sure enough, the social worker, she called me and she said, we have a date for her to start, doing weekend visits, spending more time with her mom. And then, in this month, she's going to be going home. And so it was a hard process. There was some hiccups along the way, but she started going home on the weekends. Every weekend she would go home with her mom. And, she eventually she went home, so I packed up all her things, and I have lots of videos of her. I have lots and lots of pictures of her. I packed up her things, and I said to the Lord, I said, Lord, she belongs to you. She belongs to you before she belonged to me. I said, but I give her back to you. And I said, Lord, protect her, keep her safe. I prayed with her many, many times before she left, and I gave her back to her mother. And all the things that I accumulated for her, I gave to her mother. I kissed her, told her that I loved her. I said, if you need anything, you let me know. And she was gone. For a couple months, I got her every now and again. Her mother would let her spend the night, but then I lost contact with her mom. And so it's been well over a year. And so I wanted to make this video to share a very, very important lesson that I learned from this particular placement. And the lesson is that when I loved her like I have never, ever loved a foster child before. And I loved her so much where I wanted her to become mine. But God took her and gave her back to her mother for reasons that belonged to him. But when she left me, physically left me, God imparted into me something called purpose. When she left on Christmas, it hurt me. But it opened up something within my heart. I thought that I would be heartbroken. I thought it would be like going through a breakup. I thought I just would be bleeding and hemorrhaging emotionally. But instead, God did something in my heart to where it opened it up to where it made me confident in myself. It made me strong within myself. It tickled my imagination. It did something to my creativity. And that is where the birth of Nicci the Great came in. God imparted to me my purpose as a gift, as a going away gift to my daughter Jujubee. And so, to make a really long story short, I want to encourage you today, to the people that are watching this, whether you already are a foster parent or you're looking to become a foster parent. And this is something I hear from people all the time when they share with me their main fear of becoming a foster parent is getting attached. And getting attached is a natural thing. It's a healthy thing. But there is a lesson in the attachment, okay? There's a lesson even when you pour. And let me tell you, I poured everything I had into this little girl as if she was my own. She was my own child. But there's a beauty that happens when she goes to the next transition, when he goes into the next transition, when they go into the next season of life. You're not going to be left with a gaping hole. You're left with an impartation. Every child that leaves your home is going to leave you with something special. They're going to leave you with more love for the next child. They're going to impart to you something so beautiful. And real divine purpose comes from giving. It comes from loving. And when you love and when you give it with everything in your soul. Thank you so much for taking the time out to watch this video. I am Nicci the Great, and together we are growing, sharing, and thriving.